Welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast. Today, we're sitting down with someone who's mastered the art of turning cold email into real business opportunities. Alex Makowski is the founder of Infinite Bookings, and he's been transforming how businesses approach lead generation through a systematic outreach for the past few years. Today, we'll be exploring the strategies that are genuinely driving B2B growth. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Zach. I'm excited to talk and to learn more about it.
For sure. Cool. So I think probably just like kick things off, would love to give like everyone like a bit of background. And as far as like how you got into this space, I obviously know you from Twitter. I've seen your tweets like all over the place, but I'm assuming there's probably a few people that aren't as familiar with you.
Yeah, that's a great way to start. So I started off probably three and a half years ago at this point. I worked for like an agency, really, kind of like as an SDR, but it was
Yeah.
like a Polish creative agency. Um, so that's really where I started. And obviously with an SDR, you kind of get a lot of, I guess you could say, persistence, and you learn a lot of,
Yeah.
how to take no's and how to take people kind of flipping you off and stuff like that. So that was my first kind of entrance into entrepreneurship and overall sales and marketing in general. And then after that, you kind of move into the era of me starting my first agency where it was like your basic like paid ads or like paid media agency. Didn't do too
Yeah.
well, very, very bad, but learned a lot. So that's the most important stuff. And then eventually I moved into a Web3 agency, so like crypto, NFTs, stuff like that. And that's where I learned a lot about lead generation, even more than the SDR role. Um, and really, there was a few other partners, and my main responsibility was to generate leads, right? So for Twitter, for Web3, it was a little bit different, but the whole kind of thesis of get people onto a call, get people onto a discovery, learn more about their situation, pitch them some sort of solution.
Mhm.
That all really stayed the same, right? So
Yeah.
after that, we kind of left the Web3 space. We didn't really want to be in NFTs and stuff like that. I started my own agency which is now Infinite Bookings. And yeah, ever since then, in the past, like around 6 months, we booked over 1,000 sales calls just through cold
Wow.
email, working over 15 different industries. And yeah, really just putting the work and trying to scale not only myself, but also the clients that we're working with.
No, I love that. And you mentioned obviously starting with like the SDR role. And then if it was like a creative agency, like I'm expecting it was probably like a bit more like commodities as far as like a service where it wasn't someone like direct, like revenue driven with like the type of clients that you're working on like right now. Is it typically like direct like lead generation to produce like revenue or like similar services or?
So there's a lot of different offers that we're working
Okay.
with. Some work very well, some don't work too much, right? Some cold email isn't the best platform to get leads from. I would say that the best ones are the ones where you have direct, I guess, attributable revenue that you can provide to a client.
Yeah.
But also there are offers like, I guess like a one kind of like interesting offer that we're working with right now is um like urine toxicology. So like people have like urine tests and blood
Yeah.
tests and all those different things, and those like rehab centers, right, where people do those, they need to send those samples somewhere. So there's like two big companies that do it, right?
Hmm.
One of them being like Quest Diagnostic, which is like thousands of employees, but there's these
Yeah.
smaller players in the game where they can still help these people, and that's really what we're doing. So and
Interesting.
that's not like direct revenue, I guess, attribution. So it really does depend on kind of the uniqueness of the offer, what market you're working in, and a few different factors.
No, that's a fair point. And you obviously mentioned having booked like 1,000 calls like for clients and yourself over like the past few months. So those are obviously like cold email like specific for like the most part at least. So when you look at like cold email, because there's like so much noise in like the space. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed
Yeah.
this. You get people just replying to you, and then you get like that one reply to like, wow, like this is the first cold email like I've ever replied. So you somewhat get a sense that there's a lot of spam out there, not a lot of like actually good like offers when you start like working with clients, is there a certain approach that you guys take to somewhat stand out from the noise and really present like a unique like offering, whether it's just having like a really good offering, having a good approach, or it could even be having like a really amazing like call to action, for example?
Yeah, so one, or I would say 90% of the results that you will see with cold email, it actually doesn't matter anything about the emails you send, the infrastructure you use, the lead list that you scrape, or like what directory you use. It all comes down to who you're sending the cold email for, right?
Hmm.
What type of company you're working with. If the offer is bad, nothing is going to save you, right? So that's why, like, you can concoct this like crazy cold email with AI personalization, with scraping some insane database that's private or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
it, it's not going to work if the company doesn't offer something that people actually need, right? And
Yeah.
most of the time, when people respond with like, "Oh, this is like," I usually don't respond to cold emails, but this one was so good that I had to respond. It's usually a very simple message, right? It's usually two, three sentences max, and it's just relevant. That's really the main thing.
Hmm.
Uh, Kind of like a, I guess not a saying, but like a sentence we use is we put a relevant offer in front of a relevant person at a relevant company at a relevant time, right? And that's all that cold email is. That's all that marketing is too. You know, if
Yeah.
even if you do PR, right? Like it's the same thing, right? That's what people want is relevancy. So I guess that's not just like a cold email thing. That's something that you learn doing any sort of marketing or sales in general.
Yeah, and I agree with you with like the like two, three phrases, like ourselves, even like we do maybe like one or like two phrase. And I've seen that
Yeah.
like outperform like two, three paragraph type emails. Like that absolutely like
Yeah.
crushes it. And I somewhat like agree with you that like the offer component, I mean, it is like the most important component. Like the email infrastructure, like I know you mentioned it, like it doesn't matter. There is still like a little bit of a component with it that if you only go to spam, I mean, even if you have like an amazing offer, no one is gonna like see it. And I think during like the past like 2, 3 months, I would say, there was like this big crisis with like Outlook, for example. Like I know a lot of people were absolutely freaking out. Like 50% of like people they would be emailing would be Outlook, and it would directly go to spam, which means directly
Yeah.
your TAM is reduced by 50%, which kind of affects like your results like pretty heavily. Going into like 2025, is there like certain changes that you guys are using, like apart from like the office specific, more perhaps with like the infrastructure, the personalization, the targeting going into 2025 that you guys are going to be using for clients, things that you perhaps like foresee or?
Yeah, of course. And that's a good point that really the whole system has to be maximized in terms of efficiency. So you have the lead list, right? You have the infrastructure, the scripts, the lead management, all of that has to be maxed out as much as possible. So just I guess to directly answer your question, yeah, we're doing a lot of testing. Right now, the I guess system that we're running is pretty simple, in terms of like the actual infrastructure. So I'm not sure like how much you know within cold email, but right now for our domains, we're getting them from Pork Bun.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so Pork Bun for the low cost domains. Then we're using either premium inboxes or cheap inboxes for Google reseller accounts. So
Yeah.
when we get a new client, we set up 100 accounts, right? So we can send all the way up to 2,500 emails, right, per day once we
Mhm.
fully scale it up. And then for like your sequencer or your email like automation platform, we're
Yeah.
using Smart Lead still.
Mhm.
Just because, and we've tested most of the major and even the smaller sending platforms,
Yeah.
the performance is not like that much better on other ones, but with Smartly, you do have a lot of like better integrations that you can literally like our whole campaign creation process is fully automated, right? So
Okay.
like you wouldn't be able to do that with most of the other ones. So like just for that like efficiency's sake, that's why we still use Smartlead.
Yeah.
And yeah, that about does like the infrastructure. But like I said, like we're constantly testing
Mhm.
different email service providers, different like sending tools, stuff like that. And this is, like I said, it's all like a general, right? Like
Of
even
course.
in SEO and PR in like normal like e-commerce email marketing, there's always so much stuff to test and
Yeah.
always so much new stuff coming out. So if you're not like constantly iterating and testing, um, you're gonna fall behind and you're gonna
Right.
start not being able to deliver for results and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's fair. It's like basically you guys start with like the Google, you start getting results, you see how that works. Do you guys stay with like Google? Do you end up going to like private infrastructures, or do you just keep the Google there?
So they're Google reseller accounts. So they're not like
Yeah.
100% Google.
Yeah.
They're also half the price. So which is nice, right? You can send a lot more volume for half the price.
Mhm.
Um, but honestly, the performance between the Google ones and the reseller Google ones is basically the same. They're the same type of email account.
Mhm.
Same like US IPs, same everything. So yeah.
Well, that makes sense. And I guess like another thing I'd be curious about, because I know we spoke onto like the infrastructure side of things, which like totally makes sense. When you look at more like personalizing, like targeting, like I know like a lot of people on Twitter use like all sorts of like AI tool, like enrichment to make sure they're getting like all these little data points to maximize like relevancy. Is there like a certain approach that you guys have been taking? I know you're like pretty like heavy like Clay guy. You love Clay, if I'm not mistaken, right? Apart from that, anything else that you
Yeah.
guys are doing?
So the whole thing with personalization, right? Personalization is great, but once again, it comes down to what company you're sending emails for. Because like I just posted this on Twitter, like right before this.
Yeah,
Um, we had a campaign and we were generating, I think it's one lead for every 75 contacted people, which is really good.
yeah,
And
that's good.
the funny part is there's zero personalization, right? Zero. We didn't even
Yeah.
open up Clay for that campaign, right? Why that campaign worked very well is because it was a good company we were sending it for. They had a good offer, and we just targeted correctly, right?
Mhm.
So for those types of campaigns, you don't need personalization. You
Yeah.
just need a good offer. Now, there are some cases where you need Clay, and there are some cases where you really need Clay. So
Yeah.
when you have an offer where like it's a pretty like boring offer, like for example, e-commerce email marketing, right? You see a lot of them. You have a ton of emails. You like it's a pretty sophisticated offer, right? A lot of people know about it. That's when you need Clay, right? Because the emails they need to break through the noise past their offer because their offer is like normal, right? It's not a terrible offer. It's still making
Yeah.
money, but it's just harder to break through the noise without personalization if you don't
Mhm.
have a unique offer. And it's this, like I said, it's the same with everything, right? It's
Yeah.
the same with cold calling. It's the same with like SEO. It's the same with any other type of marketing. If you have a
Mhm.
good offer, you don't need all the crazy stuff, right? Same
Yeah.
thing, like if you have a good product, it sells itself in a way, of course, but it's
Mhm.
much easier to do cold email for like lower sophistication markets because you just don't need the Clay.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question. Not to
Yeah.
say that we don't use Clay, but it's not like a client comes in and they have a great offer, we're gonna automatically use Clay, right?
Yeah.
If we've seen that those types of offers work, I guess better with Clay, then of course we're gonna use that and we're gonna do the AI first lines. We're gonna do the little
Mm.
snippets and all those enrichments, but it's also never that crazy of enrichments.
Yeah. And if you leave someone apart, like the personalization, like if you have like a really great offer, you have like a not really sophisticated like offer market or anything like that. I guess like the only other part that is missing is going to be like the targeting. Like obviously making sure you're getting in front of like really like the right person. Is there like a certain approach that you guys take as far as like targeting? Because I know some people are going to target CEO founders, call it a day. They're not going to go like a bit heavier into it. But I'm assuming you guys might have like a bit deeper approach to that.
Yeah, so on a like company level, in terms of like who you're targeting at the company, you have to take a look at two things. One is how big is the company, right? Because if you're gonna write a different email to a different person at a three-person company compared to a 50-person company compared to
Yeah.
a 500-person company.
Mhm.
So you have to take that into account. And also like Apollo makes it super easy to filter out by job filters, right? By job
Yeah.
title, sorry. So you just do that, right? And you like it's not even going the extra mile to filter it out. It's just like doing what's necessary, right? So you just filter
Yeah.
by the job titles based on how big the company is. And one thing I'll say is like some people aren't sure what job titles to target
Mhm.
for different industries, for different type like size companies, for the type of offer that they're promoting, because those are all factors that come into the job title. Um, Really the best tool to use for that is ChatGPT, right? So
Yeah.
doing research with ChatGPT, doing like like literally you could just ask him, hey, I'm reaching out to this company, right? What kind of job title should I target to promote this offer? And that's it. It's that simple. And ChatGPT is such a, not, I would say underrated. It just, you got to use it,
Yeah.
right? That's it. So yeah, I mean, I'm actually curious, do you use ChatGPT in your agency as well or no?
We don't really use ChatGPT. We really use only like Claude, to be honest with you. I found
Uh-huh.
that it performs like way better, but it's the same concept. We don't use ChatGPT, but we'll obviously use like OpenAI for like the
Okay.
API keys and stuff like that. But apart from that, I mean, like I don't use ChatGPT on like a daily basis. Claude every single day, I would say use it. It has become
Okay.
like a second brain. But yeah, and just going back to like what you said earlier, which I thought was interesting, is you mentioned when you target, for example, like a three-person company, and then you look at like a 50%, there's going to be somewhat like a difference between like the messaging, where it obviously depends like who you're targeting. And you've obviously booked like calls with companies such as like BMW, if I'm not like mistaken, like really enterprise, like
Yeah.
Fortune companies, etc. When you look at targeting like small, medium-sized businesses, and then you look at like enterprise clients, how would you say like your approach somewhat shifts or like changes? Because I'm assuming there is like a pretty big difference between the two there.
Yeah, so like obviously we're not reaching out to the CEO of
Of course
BMW,
not.
right?
Yeah.
It's like a marketing manager or something like that, which is in simple terms an employee at BMW. So you have to
Mhm.
account for like kind of the language you use. So maybe it is a little more corporate, maybe it is a little more like not uptight, but like a little less conversational as compared to like reaching out to like me or you,
Mhm.
who compared to BMW is a much smaller company, right? Runs much
Yeah.
smaller companies. And you kind of can talk to them differently.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess more of like the language changes a little bit, and
Yeah.
also like the positioning of like what the benefit of the offer is. So like to like when we were reaching out to BMW, right? Um, we're not going to offer them paid ads or like email marketing. The offer has to be correlated to the type of company you're reaching out to.
Mhm.
Um, so like to you, like okay, sure, like it would be valid if someone reached out and offered paid ads or B2B lead gen or anything like that, but like you're not going to do that to BMW. So you have to kind of
No.
think about like who is the actual buyer, and a lot of
Mhm.
that is doing not market research but client research, right? So like if a client comes to you and they've only worked with big companies, that's who you got to reach out to, right?
Yeah.
So it really is sometimes just common sense stuff, but you actually like you can't just get caught up with stuff and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're working with like these like clients that have big clients, like you can obviously use those like case studies and like just use those as like third party validation, like OS. So that always
Yeah.
helps. And going back to some of like the AI, because I know that has been absolutely like crazy over like the past like few months, etc. You've created like some interesting content on like YouTube. I think I saw with, like some like AI like powered lead magnets and stuff like that. When you look at like your outreach process, I know we can obviously have like personalized line and then add like a few like variables. But is there like another level that you guys use AI, whether it's just GPT for like market research, first lines? Is there like another part that you use in your process or?
Yeah, definitely. So we're using AI pretty heavily. One for market research or like ideation of campaigns, um, like on the script side of things.
Yeah.
So for example, like right now we're building out like a lot of operations stuff, like automations and stuff like that in Airtable to like automatically launch campaigns basically. So right now we're putting this like big prompt together and trying to make it really good so that we don't even have to really write cold email scripts for the very generic offers so
Hmm.
that it's just like there. So, like for example, I click a button, it goes to the client's onboarding form and it runs it through the prompt and it spits out cold email scripts, right?
Wow.
So obviously those aren't the best yet, but and like you can't add personalization to that yet, right? I guess maybe we'll get it to a point where you can, but that's not the point really. That would be really cool, by the way, though.
Oh yeah.
Um, but really, it's about like kind of getting an idea for a campaign.
Mhm.
Obviously, ideas like are mostly like the same, like in terms of like templates for campaigns. But the actual idea of like what type of lead magnet are we putting in, what type of campaign level offer, how can we make this campaign better? that's a big part of that is using ChatGPT and using the OpenAI API key.
So in like a way being like more efficient with like your approach, just being faster, but also getting feedback on perhaps like your outreach campaigns and being able to make these tweaks based on that feedback in a way.
Yeah, I would say being able to do like create campaigns faster, but not only not sacrificing like results or like how good it is, but also making it better even. Obviously, if you have like a really, really good prompt, you have the possibility of even being better than if just some random human wrote it, right? So that's
Yeah.
really the point we're trying to get it to. Still a bit away from there, but we're working for it.
I don't know. So it's sometimes annoying playing with prompts trying to get that perfect one over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
Um, I guess like when we look at like AI, like what would you say somewhat your perspective between like using it like too much and then using it like just a little bit, especially like when we're dealing with like high volume campaigns compared to like really small ones. Because if you're targeting, for example, a very limited TAM, you have like 1,000 people, you probably will want to take a very more precise approach. Whereas if you have like a TAM like 1 million, something like web design, for example.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've actually been thinking about this a lot because a lot of people like they'll start using clay, right? Clay's a new
Yeah.
big thing. And they'll add tons of personalization, like too much, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, hey, we're helping companies in like imagine you got this email. Hey, we're helping PR agencies in whatever hometown, right?
Yeah.
In Mississauga, Canada, that are between 5 to 50 employees, right? Scale their outbound efforts. Like it's
Yeah.
too personalized, and that's like a very like there's no AI in that, but
Mm.
some people do add that type of stuff, and that's what makes it sound even more unnatural than if you just said, "Hey, do you want
Yeah.
B2B lead gen?" So there
Yeah.
is a happy medium, of course, of using AI, but not
Mhm.
too much. Um, like for example, like we used to run a workflow for like e-commerce brands, right? So for e-com, for example, it's pretty saturated, right? Like the industry in general. So
Yeah.
what we would do is run a workflow where we would go onto their website and basically generate 3 ideas that we can provide on, like fulfill on. Like for example, setting up a birthday reminder email or something
Yeah.
like that, right? And it's super I guess tailored because they don't have a birthday email or they don't have a birthday sign up or something like that. And that's something that the AI can do.
Mm.
Or for example, like going onto the website, finding a product name, right? That's a pretty simple one.
Yeah.
Or like when we're reaching out to agencies, we can see what type of agency they are, what they specialize in, case studies that they have on their website.
Yeah.
And if used in a very correct snippet within the email, that's like perfect, right? Because
Mhm.
when you add too much, it overpowers it and it's like too strong, right?
Yeah. So like in the end, you want to keep it as simple as possible, but maximize relevance, obviously make sure you're getting in front of like the right person at the same time.
Exactly. So like just to give an example, one of our better performing AI scripts included two like AI variables. Um, it said something to this. I'm gonna say it off the top of my mind. Uh, if I could send you a lead list of, and then the AI was like decision maker at specific companies. So like tech managers at recently funded startups, right? And it
Mhm.
would scrape that from the website. And then we would say, can I send you a quick list for and how you can use it to promote your and then product type. So like some of them were like time tracking apps. Some of them were website builders or like random softwares, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it wasn't too powerful, but it was very, very specific, right?
Yeah. And I think that goes back to like what we were seeing like earlier, like having like these AI powered like lead magnets in a way, like providing like maximizing like the relevancy. Because with these types of offers, you're somewhat leading with like value first, as opposed to just saying like, hey, do you want to hop on a call? Do you want more info or anything like that? And I feel that is definitely going to be like much more present in like the upcoming months, years, etc., where people are just tired of just getting like, hey, do you want to get on a call? They want to see the value you provide first because you're
Yeah.
somewhat differentiating yourself from like the 1,000 emails they receive like every single day.
Yeah, I mean, people are already tired of that. People are
Oh
already
yeah.
like spam, right? They don't want to
Yeah.
see it. So yeah, definitely. There's always some sort of level of iteration or like change year to year. Even
Yeah.
when I started like 4 years ago, like sending my first like few like cold emails manually and stuff like that, at the first place, like it has changed so much. Like I
Oh yeah.
remember I would send emails, like 5 emails a week, because I just didn't know what to do. And I would reach out to these like huge, like I remember one vividly, huge coffee brand in like New York that just opened, and I was like writing this email for like half an hour, showing my mom. I was like, "Mom, like, what do you think of this email?" And I mean, that's just not how it works, right? Like
Yeah.
you learn that after being in the game for long enough. Um, but yeah, it changes every single year, every month, every week it changes.
Oh yeah, I remember starting and sending like cold emails outreach, a bit similar to you. I think we maybe sent 30 emails in like that first week. And I still have like the video remembering like I'm launching my first campaign tomorrow. And I think I didn't even get like a single reply. And I took like
Yeah.
all this time writing these first line personalized email. It's like, why did this not work? So
Yeah.
that was definitely an interesting realization. And I guess just like another question, like I would be curious to hear, and perhaps like one of our last questions as far as parting thoughts here. A lot of people look at like B2B outreach. They're obviously looking at cold emails being like one of like the first things. Is there like certain common mistakes that you see people do when they try to like start cold email? Like I see so often people just try to spam out as many cold email possible and think they'll book calls, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. So number one is not working on the business first. So cold email is great when you're starting out. Um, but it's like I mentioned, it's only good if you have something that's valuable to sell. So if you're running something, an offer, and you don't have clients yet, or if you really have like don't have that product market fit, get that first, right? Because cold email is a waste of time if you don't have that. So you need to change your offer, you need to tweak it. One way of you tweaking it can be by you doing market research with cold email,
Mhm.
but you need to have something that people actually want first, and then you can promote it. Also, the second thing is thinking of cold email as a one-to-many marketing channel. So thinking of it as like an ad, where like you show the same ad, right? It's not like you just show it, it's the same exact thing, and that's it. Cold email's not really like that, right? You need to
Yeah.
be talking to the person like directly on a pretty personal level. After all, you're in their inbox, not on their, Instagram feed or whatever. So it is a bit of a different kind of placement of the actual like logistically, like it's in a different place, right? Like it's you
Yeah.
got to approach it differently. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say is the biggest mistake is just thinking that people are like entitled to respond to you because they're not.
They're not. I love that. There's
Yeah.
so many emails. They're just gonna pick out the right one they want to respond to. But yeah, no, perfect. This was really great. Really appreciate your time, Alex. And for like anyone that would wanna get in touch with you, perhaps like work with you. I know you're obviously active, like pretty actively on like Twitter, but is there any like best platform they should reach out to you or?
Twitter, LinkedIn, email, alex@infinitebookings.com. It's all pretty there. I'm at my computer most of the time during the day, so I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, Alex.